There are many good reasons to dislike Henry Ford. There are many others to admire him. In this interactive play, the audience pretends to be Ford's agents, called to Dearborn in 1932 to learn about the new Ford V8. Mr. Ford is convinced this new automobile will end the Depression.
Good. Mr. Leibold, Ernest Leibold, this meeting should take about an hour. No interruptions, please. Unless it's Harry Bennett. If Sorensen calls, I'm out. Good morning. I'm glad so many of you could make it. I said good morning. Better. Now I want to begin this meeting with a question. As you know, we ceased production of the Model A in October and then announced just last month in February that we would begin to manufacture the Ford V8 immediately. So my question for you is, what is it that we're really selling? And your answer better not be the automobile. As Ford agents from all over the country, you should know better than anyone. In fact, your answer should be second nature to you. Let me put it this way. If at the end of this meeting it is not, you will soon be looking for new employment. When the post-war depression hit, and then again in '26, when sales of the Model T plummeted, we did a little housekeeping. And if necessary, we can do it again. Now, of course, I want you to be proud of our new product, but good feelings in the workplace do not lead to better work. Insecurity forces each man to work a little harder. There is only one person in this room who cannot be replaced. No wonder Alfred Sloan and his stable of mediocre GM cars is outselling us. And this new fledgling company, Chrysler, is cutting into our sales. You've all grown too comfortable. Production of the Model A lasted almost 4 years. The Model T, nearly 20. What year did we produce the first Model T? When you call yourself a Ford agent, who knows? Well, you would think you would get at least that right. 1908. Altogether, we sold over 15 million automobiles. Now, of course, the Model T was dependable and affordable, but the real reason for our success was service. That's the answer I wanted from you, service. In the old days, other car companies figured when demand for a new car is high, raise the price. When an old car needs repair, charge the customer as much as he can bear. At Ford, we build a car that almost anyone can fix. And over half our replacement parts cost, oh, you must be that new Indianapolis dealer, less than 50 cents. From the beginning, when you walked into a clean, well-lit dealership, you were greeted by a friendly, well-dressed salesman who presented you with a quality automobile. Our slogan was, watch the Fords go by. Everyone trusted us, from Maine to Tulsa, from California to Bombay. Why? Because we put service above profit. Now, a little profit is okay, but too much is wrong. This past decade has been called the Roaring '20s. Well, I'm here to tell you that it wasn't the drunken revelry of the decadent East that gave rise to the expression. It was the rattle of the car, our car, rumbling to places only before visited in dreams.
The Ford V8 may be Henry's last creative achievement. In this play, Ford tells about the beginnings of his career and what he learned along the road.
When I was 13, the same year as my mother's death, I saw my first steam engine plodding along a country road under its own power. Remember it like it was yesterday. For me, the hiss of that motor was like the purr of a cat. I knew immediately that my life task would be to lift farm drudgery off of flesh and bone and set it firmly on steel and motor. The first machine I mastered was the pocket watch. I got so good at taking them apart and putting them back together that a friend later said, Every clock in the neighborhood shuddered when Henry walked by. Tools were my toys. I first imagined mass-producing a 30-cent pocket watch till I realized I'd have to sell over 600,000 of them in order to make a living. Against my father's wishes, I abandoned our Dearborn farm twice. The first time I was young and impulsive. I simply arose one day and marched to Detroit, knowing I would never develop my skills as a mechanic, rusting away on the farm. The second time was more of a calculation. I knew if I was going to build a quality gasoline engine, I would need to know more about electricity. And Detroit Edison had offered me a position, but I was married then, and my dear wife, Clara, would have to give up friends, family, and a house she designed herself. This faith and her sacrifice is why I've always called her the believer.
What was Ford's greatest achievement? Perhaps it was making the working class middle class. Historians often cite the assembly line. Let Ford himself tell you what he thinks.
My own contribution was not to build the roads themselves so much as to make the cars that traveled over them affordable. How? The assembly line. Now, of course, I wasn't the first. Will Rogers says Brigham Young was the first. But I was definitely the best. The key, continuity and timing. Keep the car in constant motion while the interchangeable parts arrive at just the right moment with chutes and slides and conveyor belts all working in such perfect harmony that the River Rouge plants, 1.5 miles long, 3/4 of a mile wide, and 4 stories high, can be imagined as one giant machine running as precisely as the watches I fixed as a boy.
In 1914, Ford was a social conscious progressive. By 1920, many called him the world's worst bigot. How did such good intentions go so terribly wrong? During the performance, Ford gets several unsettling phone calls that force him to reassess his life and achievements.
In 1915, I said, there ought to be a law that every soldier wear a red badge across his chest that read murder. I ignored public opinion and helped organize the peace ship to go to Europe to end the war and bring the boys home and out of the trenches before Christmas. And for this effort, every major newspaper in America ridiculed me, and some clown sent to the boat a caged squirrel with a note that read, "He'll be so happy among the nuts." Was it really so naive to believe that an open discussion between enemies could bring about a more lasting peace than guns? So why then have my workers turned on me like this? In 1914, I doubled their wages to $5 and cut the work day to 8 hours and later the work week to 5 days. My factories are clean, well lit, and safer than any farm in America. Who hired the first Negroes? Women, the blind, cripples, and even common criminals, because I believe no man should be condemned by his past. And do I flaunt my wealth? Once, on another trip to Georgia, I overheard a ditch digger say, "Oh, what I would give to have the money in that man's pockets." So I immediately took out my harmonica, my comb, my penknife, and then I handed him a total of 37 cents. I do not bargain with my men. I bargain for them. I was one of them. So why don't they understand I know what is best for them? They could have even come on the stupid march if it wasn't for my cars.
Henry Ford, so much more than his detractors would admit, so much less than he would have you believe.